On our honeymoon, my husband handed me divorce papers and said, "I only married you because I bet $10,000 with my friends." He laughed as he walked away, thinking he'd never see me again. But exactly a year later, he fell to his knees when he saw me walk into the room as, "I only married you because I bet $10,000 with my friends." Logan Reynolds' words echoed through our luxury honeymoon suite in Maldives, his laughter cutting deeper than the divorce papers he'd casually tossed onto our untouched bed. Standing there in my white silk robe, I watched my husband of exactly 7 days walk away, leaving me with nothing but a cruel truth and an unexpected strength beginning to burn inside me. Little did he know that this moment in Blackwood Global Enterprises CFO Cameron Blake's luxury resort would set in motion a chain of events that would bring him to his knees exactly 1 year later. Before we dive deeper into this journey, I want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you for joining me on this incredible ride. If these stories of resilience and unexpected twists are resonating with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's completely free and helps us grow this amazing community. Now let's dive in. Perhaps if I'd known how this fairy tale would end, I might have seen the signs that first morning at Blackwood Global Enterprises. Now, as I stand in this honeymoon suite, my world shattering around me, my mind can't help but drift back to where it all began exactly 1 year ago. The memory feels like watching a movie where you already know the ending, yet you're powerless to warn the main character of what's to come. Let me take you back to that autumn morning when an ambitious young analyst stepped into a world of corporate politics, hidden agendas, and a bet that would change everything. The glossy marble lobby of Blackwood Global Enterprises gleamed under crystal chandeliers as I clutched my leather portfolio, heart racing with first-day jitters. The security guard's warm smile did little to calm my nerves as he handed over my freshly minted employee badge. "Amber Mitchell, financial analyst. 47th floor," he directed, pointing toward the executive elevators. "Mr. Blake's team is expecting you." The elevator ride felt endless, each floor bringing me closer to what I hoped would be the beginning of my dream career. I'd graduated top of my class, completed prestigious internships, and finally landed a position at one of the most competitive firms in the country. What I didn't know then was that this elevator would become the stage for countless moments that would reshape my entire life. Logan Reynolds was waiting when the doors opened, his crisp navy suit and confident smile making my breath catch. "Amber Mitchell?" He extended his hand. "I'm Logan, Senior VP of Strategic Planning. Cameron asked me to show you around." Cameron Blake's name carried weight throughout the financial world. As CFO of Blackwood, his reputation for brilliant strategy and impeccable ethics had transformed the company. I'd researched him extensively before my interviews, but nothing had prepared me for the commanding presence that greeted us in the conference room. "Welcome to Blackwood, Ms. Mitchell." Cameron's deep voice resonated with genuine warmth. "Logan speaks highly of your credentials. I trust you'll find our team both challenging and supportive." Those first weeks passed in a blur of meetings, presentations, and late nights poring over spreadsheets. Logan frequently stopped by my desk, offering guidance and coffee when my eyes grew tired. His mentorship seemed natural, professional, until the evening everything shifted. "You've got real potential, Amber," he said one night as we worked on quarterly projections. "Not everyone picks up our systems this quickly." The soft lighting cast shadows across his features, making him appear almost vulnerable. "Would you like to grab dinner? To celebrate your first month?" I should have noticed how Cameron's expression tightened whenever he saw Logan and me together. Should have registered the knowing looks exchanged between Logan and his executive friends. But I was enchanted by Logan's attention, his seemingly genuine interest in my ideas and ambitions. Our office romance bloomed amid budget meetings and strategy sessions. Stolen glances across conference tables, fingers brushing as we exchanged documents, lunch breaks that stretched slightly too long. The entire office buzzed with whispers about the rising star VP and the promising new analyst. Cameron remained professional but distant, his piercing gaze often lingering on our interactions. In retrospect, perhaps he saw what I was too blinded by emotion to recognize. The subtle smirks Logan shared with his friends, the way he showcased our relationship in front of certain executives, the calculated nature of his advances. "You're different from anyone I've ever met," Logan would say, making my heart soar. He painted pictures of our future shared success, partnership in both life and career. When he proposed 6 months later in front of the entire executive team, Tears of joy blurred my vision as Cameron stood silently in the background. The engagement transformed our workplace dynamic. Suddenly, I wasn't just the talented analyst anymore. I was Logan Reynolds' fiancé. Doors opened, invitations to executive events multiplied, and my projects received unprecedented attention. I attributed it all to Logan's influence and support, never suspecting the cruel truth lurking beneath the surface. As I sit here now, remembering those early days at Blackwood, the signs seem painfully obvious. The way Logan's friends watched our relationship unfold with barely concealed amusement. The concerned glances Cameron sent my way. The too perfect fairy tale that would shatter into 1,000 pieces on a pristine Maldivian beach, transforming my romantic dream into an elaborate nightmare orchestrated for a mere $10,000. But that was just the beginning. Little did Logan know that the company that witnessed our romance would become the stage for something far more powerful than his petty bet. A revenge served not with anger, but with success beyond his wildest imagination. The spring air carried the scent of blooming roses as Blackwood Global Enterprises elite gathered at the Grand Plaza Hotel's ballroom. Every detail of our wedding day had been meticulously planned, from the crystal chandeliers draped with white orchids to the string quartet playing softly in the corner. Logan had insisted on sparing no expense, though I'd preferred something more intimate. "It's not every day a senior VP marries his protégé," he'd said with that charismatic smile that made everyone forget their reservations. Now, standing before the ornate floor-length mirror in the bridal suite, I smoothed my hands over the custom-designed gown that cost more than my first year's salary. My reflection showed a woman transformed, no longer just the ambitious analyst, but a bride about to marry into Blackwood's inner circle. The makeup artist had created a masterpiece, hiding the shadows under my eyes from countless late nights finalizing merger documents. Those documents, ironically, would later prove crucial to my understanding of the company's power structure. A gentle knock interrupted my thoughts. "Ms. Mitchell?" Cameron Blake stood in the doorway, his usual commanding presence softened by what appeared to be genuine concern. "May I have a moment?" He approached with measured steps, holding a small blue box. "A wedding gift," he explained, though perhaps not what you might expect. Inside lay an elegant silver key to a private office on the executive floor. "You've earned it through your own merit, regardless of today's celebrations." Something in his tone made me pause, but before I could analyze it further, my bridesmaids burst in with champagne and excitement. Cameron slipped away, his gift tucked safely in my clutch, where it would remain forgotten until that fateful day in the Maldives. The ceremony itself passed in a blur of emotions and perfectly choreographed moments. Logan's vows rang with sincerity that would later mock me in my darkest hours. "You're not just my partner in life," he declared before the assembled corporate aristocracy, "but my greatest investment." The crowd sighed appreciatively, missing the calculated gleam in his eyes. During the reception, I noticed Cameron deep in conversation with Logan's circle of executive friends. Their usual boisterous laughter seemed muted, faces serious until they spotted me watching. The champagne flowed freely, toasts becoming increasingly elaborate as the evening progressed. "To the perfect corporate merger," one board member declared, drawing polite laughter. Logan's best man, David from marketing, gave a speech filled with inside jokes about office romance and strategic partnerships. Each word would later take on new, bitter meaning. The wedding gift table groaned under elaborate packages from the corporate elite, rare art pieces, exotic vacation vouchers, and enough crystal to fill a showroom. But it was Cameron's simple key that should have commanded my attention. Instead, I was distracted by Logan's constant parading of me before influential guests. "My brilliant bride," he'd introduce me hand possessively at my waist. "Did you know she increased department efficiency by 30% in her first quarter?" Each introduction felt less like pride and more like a sales pitch, though I couldn't understand why until much later. As the evening drew to a close, Logan's friends gathered for one final toast. Their glasses clinked with an intensity that seemed out of place for a wedding celebration. "To success," they chorused, exchanging knowing looks that I mistook for simple male camaraderie. We departed amid a shower of rose petals, bound for the Maldives in Logan's company's private jet. The cabin crew treated us with exceptional courtesy, though I caught one flight attendant giving me a strangely sympathetic glance. Perhaps she'd witnessed similar scenes before, Or maybe she simply saw what I was still blind to, a carefully orchestrated performance reaching its final act. As the city lights faded below us, I curled contentedly against my new husband's shoulder, his laptop screen reflecting yet another work email. Just finalizing some details for our return, he assured me, typing rapidly. Those details, I would soon learn, had nothing to do with work and everything to do with a bet that would shatter my world in paradise. The wedding ring felt heavy on my finger, its diamonds catching the cabin's dim light. In just 7 days, it would become a symbol not of love, but of the most expensive lesson I'd ever learn about trust, ambition, and the true nature of corporate alliances. The Maldivian resort spread before us like a postcard come to life. Crystalline waters, pristine white beaches, and our private villa perched over the tranquil lagoon. Cameron Blake's luxury property had exceeded every expectation, though I found it curious that Logan had chosen his CFO's resort for our honeymoon. The staff welcomed us with fresh coconuts and knowing smiles, leading us to the most exclusive overwater villa. "Welcome to paradise, Mrs. Reynolds," Logan announced as we entered the spectacular suite. The floor-to-ceiling windows revealed an endless horizon where turquoise waters met azure skies. I was too entranced by the view to notice him checking his phone repeatedly, responding to messages with unusual urgency. Our first day passed in a blur of luxury spa treatments and gourmet meals, though Logan seemed distracted, constantly excusing himself for urgent business calls. That evening, as I stood on our private deck watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant hues, he finally emerged from another lengthy phone conversation, his expression unreadable. "Amber," he called, his voice carrying an unfamiliar edge. "We need to talk." I turned, still smiling, only to find him holding a manila envelope. The sunset's warm glow suddenly felt cold against my skin. "What's that?" "You're smart, Amber. It's one of the things that made you perfect for this." He approached, his designer shoes clicking against the hardwood deck. "Perfect for the bet, I mean." "Bet." The word hung in the air between us, heavy with implications I wasn't ready to comprehend. Logan's laugh cut through the paradise ambience like a blade through silk. $10,000. That's what they wagered I couldn't get you to marry me within a year. He tossed the envelope onto the outdoor dining table. "Divorce papers. Already prepared." The world tilted sideways as reality crashed through my fairy tale. "Bet on marrying me? Don't take it personally, sweetheart. You were the perfect target, brilliant enough to be impressive, naive enough to be believable. The board members loved watching our little romance unfold." His smile turned cruel. "Though I must admit you made it almost too easy." My fingers trembled as I opened the envelope, the legal documents inside bearing his signature, dated weeks before our wedding. "All of it was a lie?" "Not all of it. You really are talented at your job. That's what made it interesting," the ambitious analyst who caught the VP's eye. "Classic corporate fairy tale." He loosened his tie, looking relieved. "The guys didn't think I could pull it off, especially with Cameron watching so closely. But here we are." The mention of Cameron's name triggered a memory. The key he'd given me, his concerned glances, the serious conversations with Logan's friends. He'd known, or at least suspected, yet couldn't warn me without proof. $10,000, I whispered, my voice steady despite the tremors racking my body. "That's what my heart was worth. Look at it this way, you got a fantastic wedding, a luxury honeymoon, and valuable networking opportunities. Some would call that a fair trade." He checked his watch casually. "My flight leaves in 3 hours. You can stay here for the week. Consider it a parting gift." The resort staff already knows our marriage was just for show. The humiliation burned deeper than any physical pain. Every kiss, every promise, every shared moment had been carefully choreographed for an audience of wealthy executives betting on my heart like a horse at the races. "Why tell me here? Why not wait until we returned?" "Dramatic flair," he shrugged. "Plus, it's harder for you to cause a scene in paradise. Corporate image to maintain, you understand?" As he walked away, designer suitcase rolling behind him, his final words drifted back across the deck. "See you at the office, Amber. Do try to keep things professional." I stood there long after the sun had set, the divorce papers clutched in my hands, watching the stars emerge over what should have been my honeymoon paradise. Something shifted inside me as the shock gave way to clarity. They'd all watched, placed their bets, waited for the punchline. Now they'd expect me to crumble, resign, disappear. Instead, I picked up my phone and typed a simple message to Cameron Blake. "The key you gave me, is that office still available?" His response came immediately. "Always was. Sometimes the best revenge isn't planned, it's earned." I smiled into the darkness, a plan already forming. Logan and his friends had gambled with the wrong woman's heart, and soon they'd learn that some bets come with consequences they never calculated. The familiar ding of Blackwood Global Enterprises' elevator no longer brought butterflies to my stomach. 1 week after the Maldives revelation, I stepped onto the 47th floor wearing armor disguised as a designer suit, a gift to myself using the honeymoon fund Logan had so generously left behind. "Welcome back, Ms. Mitchell," Cameron's executive assistant greeted me with a knowing smile, leading me past my old desk toward the private office his key had promised. The brass nameplate already mounted on the door read Amber Mitchell, Senior Financial Strategist. My promotion had been processed during my absence, planned long before Logan's dramatic exit from paradise. "The corner office suits you," Cameron's voice came from behind me. "I trust you're ready to dive into the Morrison merger?" His tone carried no pity, just professional respect, exactly what I needed. The whispers started before I'd even settled into my new leather chair. They rippled through the office like waves across that Maldivian lagoon I'd left behind. Logan's friends huddled by the water cooler, their smirks fading when they realized I wasn't running away in tears. "The quarterly projections are on your desk," I announced, striding into the morning meeting with confidence that surprised even me. Logan sat at his usual place, his momentary shock quickly masked by that practiced corporate smile. "You'll notice I've included alternative strategies for the Asian market expansion." Cameron leaned forward, genuinely interested. "Walk us through your analysis, Ms. Mitchell." For the next 30 minutes, I commanded the room's attention with facts, figures, and innovative solutions to problems they hadn't even anticipated. Logan shifted uncomfortably as his colleagues nodded with growing approval. The $10,000 he'd won seemed insignificant compared to the millions my strategy could save the company. "Impressive work," one board member commented. "Hard to believe you found time for this during your abbreviated honeymoon." "Focus is an excellent coping mechanism," I replied smoothly, gathering my presentations. Though not as effective as competence. The subtle dig made Logan's jaw clench. He knew better than anyone how capable I truly was. Lunch hours became my sanctuary in the executive lounge, where Cameron often joined me to discuss business strategies. His guidance was invaluable, though he never mentioned the bet or its aftermath unless I brought it up first. "They expected you to resign," he remarked one afternoon, watching Logan and his friends at their usual table. "Your resilience has them worried." "They should be," I responded, reviewing acquisition reports. I didn't spend 5 years earning my MBA to let a childish bet derail my career. The afternoon sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows as I worked late into the evening, long after Logan and his conspirators had left. My new office became a testament to professional dedication, walls adorned with industry awards and market analysis rather than the personal photos that once cluttered my old desk. "You're different," my assistant observed one evening, delivering another round of coffee. "Stronger." "Not different," I corrected, signing off on another successful project. "Just no longer distracted by fairy tales." The weeks marched forward, each day adding another brick to the foundation of my recovery. Logan's attempts to undermine my confidence fell flat against the shield of my growing success. His snide comments in meetings were met with data-driven rebuttals that left him scrambling. "The board is impressed with your performance," Cameron mentioned casually one evening. "Particularly your handling of the Morrison negotiations." I smiled, remembering Logan's frustrated expression when his proposed strategy had been overshadowed by my superior analysis. Success is the best answer to doubters. As the sun set over the city skyline, I stood at my office window, fingering the key Cameron had given me on my wedding day. The woman reflected in the glass wasn't a victim of a cruel bet, she was a phoenix rising from the ashes of betrayal, her wings made of spreadsheets and strategic planning rather than broken promises. My phone buzzed with a message from the board. My proposal for restructuring the Asian division had been unanimously approved, with one notable abstention from a certain senior VP who was quickly losing his golden boy status. Paradise Lost had become Paradise Redirected, and as I watched Logan's office light flick off for the day, I knew this was just the beginning of my response to his $10,000 gamble. 3 months after the honeymoon incident, Blackwood Global Enterprises buzzed with a different kind of energy. My successful restructuring of the Asian division had opened doors previously barred by old corporate hierarchies. The quarterly board meeting approached, and this time I wasn't just presenting, I was leading the strategic planning session. The Singapore numbers exceeded projections by 30%, I announced, standing confidently at the head of the boardroom. Behind me, vibrant graphs displayed the success of my initiatives. Our new approach to regional partnerships has created unprecedented growth opportunities. Logan shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his usual swagger diminished by the undeniable success of the strategy he'd originally opposed. Cameron sat at the opposite end of the table, his slight smile conveying silent approval as I fielded questions from impressed board members. "Remarkable turnaround, Ms. Mitchell," the board chairman commented. "Perhaps you'd be interested in heading our new International Development Committee?" I caught Logan's sharp intake of breath. He'd been angling for that position for months. "I'd be honored, sir," I responded, maintaining professional composure despite the sweet satisfaction coursing through my veins. After the meeting, Cameron invited me to join him for coffee in his private office. The city skyline provided a stunning backdrop as he poured 2 cups from his personal espresso machine. "You've exceeded every expectation," he remarked, handing me a steaming cup. "Though I suspect that's becoming a habit for you." "Excellence is the best response to doubt," I replied, noting how his eyes crinkled with appreciation at the sentiment. Our professional relationship had evolved into a genuine mentorship. Cameron's guidance went beyond mere business strategy. He taught me the intricate dance of corporate politics, the art of turning adversaries into allies, and the importance of patience in pursuing long-term goals. The transformation wasn't limited to my career. I'd invested in myself, upgrading my wardrobe to project the image of success I was rapidly becoming. The timid analyst who'd once sought Logan's approval had been replaced by a confident executive who commanded respect through competence rather than connections. "The Morrison Group is impressed with your handling of their portfolio," Cameron mentioned during one of our strategy sessions. "They've requested you personally for their upcoming expansion project." The irony wasn't lost on me. The Morrison account had been Logan's pride and joy, his ticket to the executive committee. Now it was slipping through his fingers along with his reputation for being indispensable. Late nights at the office became opportunities for innovation rather than escape. I built a team of talented analysts who shared my vision for data-driven decision-making. Together, we revolutionized the company's approach to international markets, earning recognition from industry leaders and financial publications. "Your recent success has caught the attention of our competitors," Cameron warned one evening, closing the door to my office. "Several firms have inquired about your availability." I smiled, organizing reports on my desk. "My loyalty lies with those who recognize true potential, not those who mistake it for a betting opportunity." His expression softened momentarily before returning to its professional mask. "The annual leadership retreat is next month. As head of international development, your presence is expected." The retreat where Logan had first proposed, playing to an audience of betting spectators. This year I'd return not as someone's fiancé, but as a rising star in my own right. As darkness fell over the city, I stood in my corner office, watching employees filter out for the day. Logan's light still burned in his increasingly isolated workspace. His circle of friends had dwindled as my influence grew. Success attracted allies more effectively than shared secrets. My phone buzzed with another message from a headhunter, offering opportunities that would have seemed impossible 6 months ago. I declined politely, knowing my greatest victory would come from succeeding exactly where they'd expected me to fail. "Ready for tomorrow's presentation?" Cameron asked, pausing by my door on his way out. "Always," I replied, gathering my materials. Though I suspect Logan's team might not be prepared for the changes I'm proposing. Cameron's subtle smile spoke volumes. "Some bets," he said quietly, "pay off in unexpected ways." Walking to my car that evening, I caught my reflection in the lobby's marble walls, confident, composed, and completely transformed from the woman who'd once dreamed of a fairy tale romance. The real fairy tale, it seemed, was writing itself in boardrooms and balance sheets, with success as the sweetest revenge of all. The annual leadership retreat at Lake Tahoe painted a vastly different picture from the previous year. Instead of clinging to Logan's arm as his trophy fiancé, I commanded attention through my innovative presentations and market insights. The lakeside resort, with its sprawling grounds and elegant conference facilities, provided the perfect backdrop for this new chapter. Cameron and I found ourselves sharing quiet moments between sessions, our conversations flowing naturally from business strategy to personal philosophies. During a sunset walk along the private beach, he paused to skip stones across the calm water. "You've transformed the company's international portfolio," he remarked, watching ripples spread across the lake. "But more impressively, you've transformed yourself. Sometimes we need to be broken to discover our true strength," I replied, selecting a smooth stone of my own. It skipped 5 times before sinking beneath the golden surface. Our dynamic had shifted subtly over the months. The mentorship that began as professional guidance had evolved into something deeper, built on mutual respect and understanding. Cameron never pushed, never rushed, allowing trust to rebuild at its own pace. "Join me for dinner?" he asked one evening, after a particularly successful strategy session. "The resort's restaurant has an excellent view of the sunset." Logan watched from across the lobby as Cameron held the restaurant door for me, his expression a mixture of disbelief and dawning comprehension. The $10,000 bet that was supposed to break me had instead led me to someone who saw my true worth. Over candlelight and fine wine, Cameron shared stories of his own early career struggles, revealing vulnerabilities beneath his polished exterior. "I recognized something in you from the beginning," he admitted. "A resilience that couldn't be bought or broken. Is that why you gave me the office key at the wedding? I knew you'd need a sanctuary, not a shoulder to cry on." His honesty was refreshing after Logan's elaborate deceptions. "Though I never imagined you'd transform that sanctuary into a command center for corporate revolution." Weeks after the retreat, our working dinners became more frequent, each conversation revealing new layers of connection. Cameron's genuine interest in my ideas and unwavering support of my ambitions stood in stark contrast to Logan's superficial charm. "The board is considering several changes to senior management," Cameron mentioned during one such dinner. "Your name features prominently in those discussions." I smiled, remembering the nervous analyst who'd once thought marriage to a VP was her path to success. Life has a way of exceeding our original aspirations. The gossip mill churned with speculation about our growing closeness, but this time I didn't care. What was building between Cameron and me felt real, substantial, everything my relationship with Logan had pretended to be. During a late-night strategy session in his office, Cameron finally addressed the elephant in the room. "I've watched you rebuild yourself from the ashes of betrayal," he said softly. "And in doing so, you've built something I never expected to find in the corporate world: genuine connection." The city lights twinkled below as he stepped closer, his presence both comforting and exhilarating. "The question is," he continued, "are you ready to trust again?" Looking into his eyes, I saw no trace of calculation or hidden agendas. "With the right person," I replied, "trust isn't a risk, it's an investment." His smile held promises that required no verbal guarantees. As he leaned in to kiss me, I realized that sometimes the best revenge isn't plotting payback. It's finding authentic happiness while your adversaries watch from the sidelines. The next morning, walking into the office together, we made no attempt to hide our connection. Logan's face twisted with recognition as he pieced together the ultimate irony. His cruel bet had led me straight into the arms of his boss, a man whose net worth made $10,000 look like pocket change. But it wasn't about the money anymore. It was about finding someone who valued me for exactly who I was, who had seen my potential even when I was blind to it myself. Cameron's love wasn't a bet or a game. It was the unexpected prize I'd won by refusing to let betrayal define me. Our wedding was everything my first wasn't: intimate, genuine, and completely free of corporate politics. Cameron and I exchanged vows in his private garden estate, surrounded by blooming cherry blossoms and only our closest friends. No betting pools, no hidden agendas, just pure, uncomplicated love. "Ready to make your grand entrance?" Cameron squeezed my hand as we stood in the elevator of Blackwood Global Enterprises the following Monday. The diamond on my finger caught the morning light, but this time it symbolized something real. The doors opened to reveal the familiar 47th floor, though everything felt different now. Employees stopped mid-conversation, their eyes widening as they processed the sight of their CFO hand in hand with the woman who'd once been the subject of their gossip. "Good morning, Mrs. Blake," Cameron's executive assistant beamed, handing me a stack of congratulatory messages. The nameplate on my office door had already been updated. Amber Blake, Executive Vice President of International Operations. Logan's arrival coincided perfectly with our morning walk to the conference room. He froze mid-stride, coffee cup halfway to his lips as reality crashed over him in waves. His ex-wife, the target of his cruel bet, was now not only his superior but also married to the company's CFO. "The quarterly reports, Logan?" I asked pleasantly, watching him struggle to maintain composure. "I believe they were due on my desk this morning." Yes, of course," he stammered, suddenly looking very small in his once prestigious corner office. "I'll have them to you within the hour, Mrs. Blake." The morning meeting was a masterpiece of corporate karma. Cameron and I sat side by side at the head of the table, our matching wedding bands gleaming under the boardroom lights. Logan's former allies, the same executives who'd participated in his betting game, now courted my favor with transparent enthusiasm. "The Asian expansion has exceeded all projections," I announced, sharing a knowing look with my husband. "Thanks to our new strategic partnerships, we're looking at a record-breaking quarter." The board members nodded approvingly. The same men who'd once watched Logan humiliate me now hung on my every word. Success, it seemed, was the most elegant form of retribution. During lunch, Cameron surprised me with a champagne toast in the executive lounge. "To my brilliant wife," he raised his glass, who turned a $10,000 bet into a multi-million-dollar success story. Logan, dining alone at his usual table, couldn't help but overhear. The irony was exquisite. His attempt to break me had instead elevated me far beyond his reach. Now he answered to me, submitted reports for my approval, and watched daily as I lived the fairy tale he'd only pretended to offer. The Morrison Group called. My assistant interrupted our lunch. "They're requesting a personal meeting with both you and Mr. Blake regarding the expansion project." "Schedule it for tomorrow," I replied, catching Logan's pained expression. The Morrison account, his former crown jewel, now reported directly to me. As the day drew to a close, Cameron and I stood in his office, watching the sunset paint the city skyline in shades of gold. "Having any regrets?" he asked, wrapping his arms around my waist. "Only that I didn't see you sooner," I smiled, leaning back against him. "Though sometimes the longest routes lead to the best destinations." Through the glass walls I could see Logan working late, probably trying to salvage what remained of his reputation. The $10,000 he'd won now seemed like pocket change compared to what he'd lost: his status, his influence, and most importantly, a woman who'd transformed betrayal into triumph. "Ready to head home?" Cameron asked, gathering his things. "Home, our shared mansion in the hills. Another upgrade from the apartment I'd once shared with Logan." "Actually," I smiled, straightening my designer suit, "I have one last meeting. The board is reviewing senior management positions, and I have some recommendations to discuss." Logan's light was still on as we passed his office. He looked up just in time to see Cameron kiss me goodbye, a final reminder that some bets come with consequences far beyond their initial stakes. The following weeks at Blackwood Global Enterprises became a masterclass in poetic justice. Each morning, Logan would arrive to find his world slightly smaller, his influence incrementally diminished. Today was no different as he sat through another executive meeting, watching his former friends hang on my every word. "The Morrison Group has agreed to expand our partnership," I announced, sharing a subtle smile with Cameron. "They've committed to a 5-year exclusive contract, with potential for expansion into emerging markets." Logan's face paled. He'd spent 3 years cultivating that relationship, only to watch it flourish under my leadership. His coffee cup trembled slightly as he took a sip, avoiding eye contact with his former betting companions who now sought my mentorship instead of his companionship. "Excellent work, Mrs. Blake," the board chairman beamed. "Perhaps you could walk us through your strategy for the European division next?" Cameron sat back, pride evident in his expression as I commanded the room. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The woman they'd once dismissed as a naive betting prize was now orchestrating billion-dollar deals with effortless grace. During lunch breaks, Logan would sit alone in the executive lounge, watching as Cameron and I shared intimate conversations over gourmet meals. The same space where he'd once bragged about his successful bet had become a daily reminder of everything he'd lost. The quarterly performance reviews are due, my assistant reminded me. Including Mr. Reynolds' department. I nodded, catching Logan's reflection in the glass walls as he hurried past. Schedule them for tomorrow. I believe Mr. Reynolds could benefit from some constructive feedback. The review session was professional yet pointed. Logan squirmed in his chair as I outlined his department's declining performance metrics. Your team seems to lack direction, I observed, sliding the reports across my desk. Perhaps you're finding it challenging to maintain focus? I've been implementing new strategies, he stammered, his confident facade cracking. If you just give me more time. Time is a luxury earned through results, Mr. Reynolds, I interrupted smoothly. Something I learned during my own accelerated career development. Later that afternoon, Cameron found me reviewing acquisition proposals in my office. You're enjoying this, aren't you? He asked, amusement dancing in his eyes. Enjoying what? I replied innocently, watching Logan through the glass walls as he struggled through another failed presentation. Simply maintaining professional standards. The day's crowning moment came during the final budget meeting. Logan's proposal for his department's expansion was met with skeptical looks from the board members, the same men who'd once backed his every venture. Perhaps, I suggested, perfectly poised, we should consider reallocating those resources to more promising initiatives. The unanimous nods around the table confirmed what Logan already knew: his glory days were over. As evening approached, I caught him staring at old photos on his phone, images from our wedding day, now tainted by the truth of his deception. The $10,000 he'd won probably felt worthless compared to watching his ex-wife become everything he'd pretended to believe in. Ready for dinner? Cameron appeared at my door, car keys in hand. Our evening plans, a reservation at the city's most exclusive restaurant, were no secret. Another reminder of the lifestyle Logan had gambled away. Just finishing up, I smiled, signing the last document on my desk. A performance improvement plan for Logan's department. His signature line at the bottom might as well have been a surrender document. Walking past his office, arm in arm with Cameron, I paused briefly. Don't forget the Morrison presentation tomorrow, Mr. Reynolds. 8 a.m. sharp. The defeated look in his eyes was worth more than any betting pool. In the elevator, Cameron pulled me close. You're quite the strategist, Mrs. Blake. I learned from the best, I replied, watching our reflection in the polished doors. Sometimes the most satisfying victories are the ones you don't have to plan. They simply unfold naturally. The night city sparkled below, a fitting backdrop to our success story. Meanwhile, Logan's office light burned late, as it did most evenings now. A solitary reminder that some bets carry consequences far beyond their original stakes. The city lights twinkled below as Cameron and I clinked glasses in our penthouse suite at the Grand Plaza, the same hotel where I'd once celebrated my ill-fated first wedding. Tonight, however, we were toasting something far more substantial. Blackwood Global Enterprises' most successful quarter in company history. To my brilliant wife, Cameron smiled, his eyes reflecting the same genuine admiration I'd come to treasure. Who turned adversity into empire. Our home life had blossomed into something I'd never experienced with Logan: genuine partnership. Each morning began with shared coffee and market reports, our conversations flowing effortlessly between personal dreams and professional strategies. The Asian markets are showing remarkable growth, I noted, reviewing the morning briefings in our home office. The Singapore merger exceeded projections by 40%. Cameron nodded, pride evident in his expression. The board's quarterly review arrived. They're particularly impressed with your leadership of the international division. The transformation extended beyond the boardroom. Our weekends were filled with charity galas, art exhibitions, and quiet moments that felt more valuable than any corporate victory. The society pages that had once documented my fairy tale wedding to Logan now chronicled the power couple reshaping the business landscape. Mrs. Blake, your 9 a.m. with the European investors is confirmed, my assistant reported as we arrived at the office. And Mr. Reynolds submitted his department's revised budget proposals. I smiled, remembering how Logan had once commanded these halls. Now his proposals landed in my inbox, each one a reminder of how thoroughly our positions had reversed. The morning meeting showcased the stark contrast between past and present. While Logan hunched over his laptop in the corner, I led the executive team through our global expansion strategy. His former allies now sought my approval, their expensive suits and practiced smiles unable to mask their shifted allegiances. The Morrison Group CEO called personally, Cameron mentioned during our lunch break. He's impressed with your vision for the Pacific Rim markets. The executive lounge buzzed with activity as we shared a quiet meal. Logan sat alone at his usual table, picking at his food while watching us with barely concealed regret. The $10,000 he'd won in his cruel bet probably felt like loose change compared to the empire I'd built from the ashes of his betrayal. The annual charity gala is next month, I reminded Cameron as we reviewed our calendar. The committee requested we serve as honorary chairs. The same social circle that had witnessed my humiliation would now watch as we took center stage. The corporate power couple whose success story had become legend in business circles. Later that afternoon, I caught Logan staring at the magazine cover framed in my office. Business Leader of the Year. Amber Blake revolutionizes global markets. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. His attempt to break me had instead unleashed my full potential. The New York expansion needs a strong leader, Cameron mused during our evening strategy session. Someone who understands our vision for growth. I smiled, already knowing Logan would apply for the position, unaware that his fate had been decided weeks ago. I believe we already have the perfect candidate in mind. Our driver navigated through evening traffic as we headed home, the city skyline a glittering testament to possibilities. In the back seat, I reviewed the next day's agenda while Cameron fielded calls from international partners. Sometimes, he said after ending his last call, the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting everything. Looking at my husband, I realized he was right. The fairy tale ending Logan had pretended to offer paled in comparison to the real-life success story I'd written for myself. My happiness wasn't built on his downfall but on my own rise to power. The evening news played silently on our home theater screen, showing coverage of Blackwood's latest market triumph. Somewhere in the city, Logan was probably watching the same broadcast, remembering the day he'd thought a $10,000 bet would define my worth. Little did he know he'd bet against the wrong woman, and lost everything that mattered in the process. Exactly 1 year after Logan had tossed those divorce papers onto our honeymoon bed, I stood at the podium in Blackwood Global Enterprises Grand Conference Center. The annual shareholders meeting had drawn record attendance, but one face in the crowd commanded my attention, Logan's ashen expression as I prepared to deliver news that would reshape the company forever. Distinguished shareholders, I began, Cameron's supportive presence beside me. I'm pleased to announce not only our most profitable year to date but also a strategic restructuring that will propel us into a new era of global dominance. The room hung on every word as I outlined our vision for the future. Logan shifted uncomfortably in his seat, likely remembering how he'd once dismissed my strategic insights as naive ambition. Now those same insights had transformed Blackwood into a market leader. As part of our reorganization, I continued, sharing a knowing glance with Cameron, we'll be consolidating our domestic operations. Several departments will be streamlined for maximum efficiency. Logan's department, of course, topped the consolidation list. His position would be absorbed into the international division, my division. The $10,000 he'd won in his cruel bet wouldn't begin to cover the salary difference between his current role and his new diminished position. Additionally, Cameron stepped forward, his hand resting lightly on my shoulder. The board has unanimously approved a new executive structure. I'm proud to announce that Amber Blake will be assuming the role of Chief Executive Officer, while I'll transition to Executive Chairman. The applause thundered through the room as Logan's face crumpled. Not only had his ex-wife survived his betrayal, but she'd also climbed to the very top of the corporate ladder he'd once thought he owned. After the meeting, well-wishers flooded our path to the executive suite. Quite a journey from that honeymoon suite in the Maldives, I remarked to Cameron as we watched Logan clear out his corner office. Some people bet on games, Cameron replied, squeezing my hand. Others bet on themselves. The afternoon brought a steady stream of executives seeking favor with the new CEO. The same men who'd once participated in Logan's betting pool now presented ambitious proposals and enthusiastic congratulations. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Your new office is ready, Mrs. Blake, my assistant announced. The CEO's suite, significantly larger than the sanctuary Cameron had given me a year ago, offered a panoramic view of the city I'd conquered. As I settled behind the massive desk, Logan appeared in the doorway looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. "Congratulations," he managed, his voice barely steady. "I suppose I should thank you for not terminating my position entirely." "Consider it a reminder," I replied smoothly, "that some investments yield unexpected returns." The day concluded with a private celebration at our penthouse. As Cameron and I toasted to the future, I couldn't help but reflect on the past year's perfect symmetry. "Did you ever imagine," I asked, "when you gave me that office key at my first wedding, that we'd end up here?" "I knew you were extraordinary," he smiled, "but you've exceeded even my highest expectations." The evening news highlighted Blackwood's historic announcement, the youngest female CEO in the company's history, orchestrating its most successful year ever. Somewhere in his downsized apartment, Logan would be watching, remembering the moment he'd thought $10,000 was worth more than my heart. As the city lights twinkled below, I curled into Cameron's embrace, finally feeling complete. My revenge hadn't come from destroying Logan, but from building something far greater than he could have imagined. His bet had been the catalyst for my transformation from naive bride to corporate powerhouse. "Happy anniversary," Cameron whispered, referring not to our wedding but to that fateful day in the Maldives when one door had closed and another had opened. "To living well," I replied, raising my glass to the future we'd built together, a future far more valuable than any bet could measure. 5 years after that fateful day in the Maldives, I stood before a packed auditorium at Harvard Business School, delivering the commencement speech to eager graduates. My story had become a case study in their curriculum, the Blake Method, turning setbacks into success. The irony wasn't lost on me as I spotted Logan's name in the footnotes, not as a business leader, but as a cautionary tale. "Success isn't about winning a single bet," I addressed the crowd, catching Cameron's proud smile from the front row. "It's about recognizing your true worth and refusing to let others define your value." Blackwood Global Enterprises had tripled in size under my leadership, expanding into markets Logan had once dismissed as unreachable. The Morrison Group, his former crown jewel, had become just one small part of our vast international portfolio. After the ceremony, a young graduate approached me, clutching her diploma. "Mrs. Blake, your story inspired me to leave a toxic relationship and pursue my MBA," she confided. "How did you find the strength to turn betrayal into triumph?" I smiled, remembering the frightened bride in that honeymoon suite. Sometimes the greatest gifts come disguised as losses. The key is recognizing when life is offering you an upgrade. Back at Blackwood's headquarters, Logan's old office had been converted into an innovation hub, a space where young analysts could develop their potential without fear of becoming betting fodder. He transferred to our smallest regional office in Minneapolis, handling local accounts with a fraction of his former authority. "The annual corporate awards ceremony is next week," Cameron reminded me over lunch in our executive dining room. "They're presenting you with the Lifetime Achievement Award." At 40, I laughed, but we both knew the significance. The same business community that had once whispered about Logan's cruel bet now studied my leadership strategies in boardrooms worldwide. The ceremony itself was a masterpiece of karma. Logan had been required to attend as a regional manager, sitting in the back while industry leaders celebrated my success. His $10,000 win had cost him millions in lost opportunities and advancement. "Amber Blake didn't just transform Blackwood," the presenter announced. "She revolutionized corporate leadership, proving that true success comes from integrity, resilience, and vision." Accepting the award, I caught Logan's eye in the audience. For once, he didn't look away. "5 years ago, someone bet that I could be bought for a price," I addressed the crowd. They didn't realize that some things, dignity, self-worth, ambition, are priceless. To anyone facing their own moments of doubt, remember, the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting exceptional. The standing ovation drowned out any response Logan might have made. As camera flashes captured the moment, I saw him slip quietly toward the exit, a final retreat from the empire he'd accidentally helped create. Later that evening, Cameron and I celebrated in our penthouse garden, the same spot where we'd exchanged genuine vows 4 years earlier. "Did you ever thank Logan for making that bet?" he teased, pouring champagne. "Thank him." I laughed, watching the sunset paint the sky in victory colors. "I suppose I should. Without his cruelty, I might never have discovered my true potential." or found you, the morning papers would carry the story of my award, adding another chapter to the legend that had begun with a honeymoon betrayal. But the real story wasn't in the headlines or the stock prices or even the corner office. It was in the quiet moments of genuine love with Cameron, in the mentoring sessions with young executives, in the knowledge that every decision I made came from a place of earned wisdom rather than borrowed status. Logan's bet had been meant to break me. Instead, it had rebuilt me into someone far stronger than the bride he'd abandoned in paradise. His $10,000 had bought him a front-row seat to my renaissance, a lifetime reminder that some women aren't just meant to survive, they're meant to thrive. As the city lights began to twinkle below, I raised my glass in a final toast. Not to revenge or success or even karma, but to the beautiful truth that sometimes life's cruelest moments lead us exactly where we're meant to be. After all, the best endings aren't about getting even. They're about getting everything.